Welcome back to the Advanced Software Architecture course. This is part 2 of the domain modeling lecture, and my name is Riccardo Scandariato. In this second part, we will focus on the elements that are included in a domain model. A domain model can be captured using a UML class diagram. You are familiar with UML class diagrams, but in this slide we will briefly recap the key elements. So the key concepts of the domain model are represented as domain classes, and this is the notation in UML for classes you're familiar with. Of course, you can have attributes within domain classes, and attributes provide additional information to the classes. And classes can be linked or via associations, and associations can be of different types, like a simple use association or aggregation, for instance. Also, you can have multiplicities at the association ends, and typically an association also has a name specifying what the association is about. And finally, you have business rules. We referred to this before, to the time invariant business rules. Typically, these rules are a bit too complex to be captured by, for instance, classes and associations, and therefore often we write them out as text, and we represent as nodes linked to, for instance, the part of the diagram that the business rules is constrained. For instance, in this case, we have a business rule on a specific association. As you might remember, in the part 1 of this series of lectures on domain model, we introduced the definition of Ivar Jakobsen. And there we mentioned that domain model contains concepts which could be objects or events in the business environment. So for instance, objects could be real-world objects, so things that we have to keep track of. So these are physical things in the real world, like a person or a shop, so tangible things, objects in the real world. Objects could also be business objects, so things that are immaterial but still have a counterpart in the real world, like for instance, an order. And events are things that occur in the business, like for instance, a transaction like a sale or a payment, and so on and so forth. For your convenience, we also have listed in this slide a number of common associations that you might use when building your domain model. Please have a more careful look at this list on your own. It's important to keep in mind that the domain model has a primary purpose as a communication means. In that sense, if the model grows beyond a size that is manageable for a human to grasp and understand at a glance, it is best to split up such a larger model into multiple models by using the concept of the view. So don't use a single model that is too big, but rather break it down and use each single view as an independent model that represents the larger business context from a specific viewpoint, from a specific standpoint. And for instance, you might consider having several of these more specific models and a bigger model representing the bigger picture and gluing it all together. It's very important, although, to keep in mind that consistency has to be maintained across the different object models that you have across the different views. Like for instance, if you define a concept in one model and then you reuse it or refer to it in another model, you have to use the same terminologies and the same name. All right, this is the end of part 2 of the domain modeling lecture. Thank you for watching.